we welcome you to the Priscilla R. Tyson Cultural Arts Center for our Conversations and Coffee program on this 23rd day of January 2025. I'm Ellen O'Shaughnessy, coordinator of the program. And we've climbed to 30 degrees today, huh? Yeah, thank you, Mother Nature. Yesterday it was 1 degree at noon. And so thank you for coming out in the cold. We celebrate this day coming together with Gustavo Hoefs, who is a designer, craftsman, working in jewelry, metalsmithing, and lapidary. Lapidary meaning the practice of shaping stone, gemstones into decorative items such as engraved stones. Gustavo has been a designer craftsman since 1981. He moved to Columbus in 1996. He shares that he was born in 1956 to a Costa Rican mother and American father in West Palm Beach, Florida. His family, on his father's side, settled in Delray Beach in Florida in 1914 to farm pineapples, then later went into dairy farming. Gustavo's endeavors began with lapidary and a fascination with opals. He says that having more ambition than money, he built his first lapidary grinders from scavenged washing machine parts and a milk crate. He later began learning to carve wax models and make castings after once again recycling old refrigeration parts to build his first vacuum casting equipment. After building up a small inventory, Gustavo began setting up at local shows in 1985, like the Sunset Celebration, still held weekly at the Sailfish Marina in Riviera, Singer Island, Florida. It wasn't long until Gustavo's design ideas began to outgrow his skills at metalsmithing and jewelry making. So it was off to school again in Penland, North Carolina. After some schooling, Gustavo was able to obtain a jewelry repair position at West Bank Jewelers for 1 year, and then it was more school at Penland, North Carolina, and University of Georgia in Athens, Georgia. In 1991, Gustavo began working at a local jeweler in Black Mountain, North Carolina, where he did repair work and custom orders for retail clients. Gustavo closed his shop in 1996 for better opportunities and worked for a bench jeweler for 2 separate businesses in Columbus. From 2005 to 2020, Gustavo operated Beach-Walled Custom Jewelry, formerly located at 4663 North High Street here in Columbus. Circumstances created an opportunity to give back, so he began teaching and has hosted jewelry making classes at the Lighthouse Art Center in Jupiter, Florida, the Armory Center in West Palm Beach, and also for the Florida Society of Goldsmiths, Miami and Fort Lauderdale. Gustavo is now partially retired and currently teaching both beginning and advanced jewelry making classes here at our beloved Cultural Arts Center. Gustavo, you will share more about you as an accomplished craftsman, worker in metal smithing with your experience using gold, platinum, palladium, silver, brass, steel, iron, copper, erogane, is that how I say that? Alloys, and so much more. Your call as a designer craftsman is truly amazing. And you call us to celebrate beauty and design. Welcome. We're so glad to have you.
Okay, I got some notes here. Thank you very much for coming today. And thank you, Ellen. That was a lovely introduction. So, it's been a while since I've done this. As you can see, there's a broad selection of stuff here. I don't have any of my real early stuff when I first started out, but what I have, I don't have photographs because I never really, I was never big on self-promotion. If I took any pictures, it was just pretty much for my own reference, you know.
And I was commenting, isn't this beautiful? He took this photo.
Yeah, it's mostly,
Gorgeous, a work of art in
yeah, it's
itself.
mostly just phone pictures. So in my jewelry case over here, I have the work starting from about 1990, which is over here at Penland. And then some of the designs I developed when I was still living in Lake Worth before I went to Penland. Stuff in the middle I did when I was working at none other Goldsmith and Mark Abbott Jewelers. And then this stuff over here is stuff that I did when I had Beachwold Custom Jewelry.
Could you hold up a couple pieces for us?
They're all pinned in the hole. You can,
Oh, okay,
if you
so we
want to,
can
a
see
little bit
them
later, come by and
afterwards, huh?
see them. And then later on, I guess about 9 years ago, I needed to do something different. So I found a friend that was within the top 10 gunsmiths for antique guns in the country. And he taught me how to do hand engraving and how to build historically correct long rifles. So this one is a copy of the only known mahogany stock rifle known in existence, made by a guy in Pennsylvania. And so I did that for a while. And then when I was going to have to retire, I thought to myself, well, I want to do something really challenging. So then I got into making tosogu, which is copies and stuffed furniture for Japanese swords. So I have an example of a complete knife that I made. It took me a year. And then I have 2 sword guards over here in the boxes. The one on the left, it's this big spider. There's a Japanese legend about a big spider. Sure. You can pass it around if you want. I just made this last year. But what's interesting is the metal that I made it out of came from an English ship that sank off of Elliott Key in 1600. So I ended up with a chunk of bronze from this shipwreck that I then cleaned up, repurposed, and used to make that spider. I had help from a guy that I met online. He lives in Tasmania, of all places. He was like a real worldwide expert for this sort of thing. And he's the one that chose the design, and then we talked about things and back and forth, and that was one of his favorite pieces. The original is in the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. They didn't think it was a spider. They thought it was a tick. But we believe it was a spider. And then the next one, this is my most recent piece here. So this piece I'll be sending to Japan next month for the non-Japanese Craftsman competition. What I'm hoping is I can get a 10th place. If I can do that, that's going to be huge because
international type.
Yeah, it's well, actually it's made. The contest is for the Japanese craftsmen to keep their artwork alive, but because there's so few people doing it, they've decided to allow foreigners in, So I found the original of this piece once again in the Victoria and Albert collection, and so I made took the photos offline and then made copies, and then and the metal is really interesting. This piece took 7 months, start to finish. I've got like 3.5 months in it, maybe. But the metal itself is, I had a bunch of old shotgun barrels. And, well, I don't want to get a lot of oil on it because I'm still trying to get the patina right. So I had a bunch of old shotgun barrels that were made out of Damascus steel that were no good for using, you know. So I chopped them up and sent them to a blacksmith, and he sent me back some steel, iron that I could use, which is different than steel. So I spent a long time, maybe 3.5 months, carving this with chisels out of a solid piece of iron.
Where on the sword is sword carved?
Small.
It goes up by the handle. This piece here. Yeah. So I made this for my stepson. He's a chef, you know, so I thought, well, okay. So this piece took me a year because I made all the parts.
Tell us more about that piece.
Well, in Japanese culture, in the samurai culture, they would carry 3 blades and a fan for protection. The fans were used as deadly as the swords were. And so so these pieces, it's like making a whole bunch of pieces of jewelry just for one piece, right? Like this piece here, you know, is separate. This piece here, there's 2 small spacers. There's this piece, there's this piece, there's 2 pieces over here. You know, there's a piece here, there's one on each side under the handles. So it's really complicated. And I found it to be really challenging, and I found it to be something that if I wanted to improve myself as a craftsman, you know, it's like, okay, there's a mountain, I got to go climb it, right? So that's kind of how I'm not a real risk taker. Like, I don't want to drive fast cars, and I did enjoy driving fast motorcycles and riding horses, but I don't want to do a lot of crazy stuff that, you know, that a lot of people do, right? So what I do is I get down and I challenge myself with something that I'm pretty sure I'm going to fail at, you know? And so my philosophy is I'd rather fail at doing something big than succeed at doing something mediocre, right? And a lot of people say that, you know, it's been around for a while, but, you know, it's an attitude. So what are you going to do? A lot of people are afraid of failure, you know, but you shouldn't be, you know.
It's a famous statement, agere contra, working against and then have it become all the more wonderful.
Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing with these long rifles, you know. It was something I had nothing to do, and Vasi, I think, has a question.
Like some of the pieces you made, like on the rifle, I don't know, or the piece you just showed us, have you got to see them in, I guess, action?
Yeah, I have. I've built for the rifles. I've built 22 different ones. I've restored 10, and I'm currently have orders for 3. I don't feel bad. I believe in gun control, you know, because we don't need, in my opinion, you know, we don't need to see what's happening now, you know. But these, they were a work of art. The Rococo design was reflective of you'd see it in everything. You'd see it in the furniture, you'd see it in architecture, you'd see it everywhere, and people had to have it carry over. And when you use one of these, it takes a lot of personal skill. You know, every time you load a shot, you have to do it consistently each time, the same time. And it takes a long time to do it. You know, it's not going to happen fast. You can't commit a mass shooting with one of these things. And a lot of, you know, they hold a piece of flint in those jaws. It has to spark just right. The powder can't be damp. There's so many things that can fail. So you have to be really careful. You have to develop a lot of skills. And to be a rifleman with one of these is not the same thing that we see today. You know, so plus it's just, when you build something like this from scratch, which I did, you know, that the wood was a plank. It was 3 inches thick, 6 feet long, and 12 inches wide when I started. So I had to, when I took the picture from that book, I had to lay it out on graph paper, measure it out, use ratio value to assign value to each piece of it, figure out what size. You know, it took me 2 years to get unpublished photographs of this piece. I knew they were out there, but the person that owns it doesn't want to say who's got it, because the original, you know, is $200,000 collectible or some crazy stuff like that. So it took me a long time to get the pictures. It took me 2 years just to get that. Then it took, you know, 6 months of planning. Then I had to get the wood. You know, where was I going to get a piece of mahogany that I could afford? So that piece of mahogany was cut in Palm Beach County. It cured for several years. Then the cast, you know, the pieces I fabricated, I made the barrel. I made every piece on it except for the lock and the trigger guard. So it's really, it takes a lot. You know, it's really challenging.
When you mentioned you spent all these years doing something, you've got other projects going too while you're waiting for the information to come back for plans, for example. Or so when you look at hours, if you can break it down that way, hours per day on something like that, would you spend typically 3 or 4 hours one day and then another day spend less? I mean,
No, well, actually, I would, when I was working on it, I would spend all day, you know, and then take a break for lunch, you know, start in the morning, take a break for lunch, you know, for a couple of weeks at a time, you know. So who knows, I got maybe, and then you make mistakes and you got to stop and, you know, and do things over. So, I mean, so the ramrod, for example, to make a tapered ramrod like that, it takes almost 2 days, you know, worth of time to make, because you have to make the tips and shave it down and make sure it's straight. And oh, that's this piece here. Yeah, that's what you use to push the shot down the barrel. So then, so the knife making is something that I was told many years ago, that a long time ago, it used to be a jeweler's trade. Okay, so I'm younger and more energy. I'll go, oh, jewelers, okay, I want to do that, you know. Also eyeglasses, but I never got around to making eyeglasses yet, because jewelers used to make eyeglasses, right? So, but I haven't gotten that part yet. But in order to be successful and round out your career, right, at some point, you find yourself wanting to do stuff, and you look around, and it's like you've been running, and you look around, and you're alone. There's nobody there that can tell you how to do something.
personal question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
How old are you?
68.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Still a young man. I'm 69, that's why I say that.
So you look around, and there's nobody there. You know, you're by, and I'm speaking figuratively, you know, because you've reached this point in your career that you've got a problem, and you're going around asking people like, how do I fix, and nobody knows. And they'll say something and you're like, well, and you think to yourself, okay, that's cool, but I already tried that. It didn't work, right? And then you find yourself that you have to solve problems in a certain way. So then I had to learn how to make tools, right? So I see this thing in my head. Either my skills aren't there yet to make what I see, or I see it, but I've got to make a tool, but I'm not really sure how to do that, you know? So here comes the opportunity part, right? So any craftsman or person needs opportunity, right? So I'm going to get into this thing here. And, you know, we all know that the climate that we just witnessed happen this last week is a little frightening. It's a little scary. I grew up in the shadow of wealth. I was born in Palm Beach County. My father was a farmer. The thing I remember most about my father is the smell of perspiration, right? It was honest money. He went out and he sweat for that money. And he always told me, he said, well, it's about opportunity. You know, you got to have opportunity and you got to have experience. And I didn't really know what that meant at the time until now. And then my mother, on the other hand, she was from Costa Rica. And her big thing was dignity, manners, table manners, you know, stuff that I didn't really want to hear. I'm like, I'm going to make the world bend to my will. Yeah, right. That didn't happen. So opportunity, though, is twofold, right? You can create, you can know how to seize your opportunity, right? So if you don't, you have to learn to see it is one thing, but then learning to seize it is another. But then growing up in the shadow of wealth, in the shadow, you know, Palm Beach, right? I was never going to be allowed into that circle of people. They know their own. You know, they can tell if you're one of them or not. And I was never going to have that. So I ended up having to leave. So it wasn't until I got to Columbus that I really had real opportunity, because of there's a real strong middle class community here. People would work for the university, there's jobs, there's a lot of things that we didn't have. You know, there was plenty of jobs in Florida if you wanted to wait tables or, you know, do domestic work or work in hotels or, you know, but that never really opened your mind to the world. It never opened your mind to literature and science. And I mean, they sold all the public radio stations down there. And the one that was left, the only thing they played was classical music, right? They never gave up and coming artists a chance, right? So when I got here, that's what I had. So it allowed me to open my jewelry shop, right?
Jewelry.
So some of the stuff, you know, here, like this one here, this piece that was a $55,000 piece of jewelry. I made that for a local attorney. It's 10 carats, perfectly matched. The picture's not great, but perfectly matched cushion cut diamonds, you know.
Yeah.
No, I made the mounting. It's 18 karat palladium white gold. I carved the mounting and mounted them and sourced them all, you know. This was for a regular person. Lady named, I think she worked at the library.
On the piece with the diamonds, did you cast it? Was it spin caster or?
I sent it out for casting because it was palladium. It was a palladium alloy. It takes an oxygen-free atmosphere, which I didn't have.
Okay, but did they spin it or? Did
I don't know how they did it.
Oh,
It was a
okay.
casting house in Chicago.
Okay.
And you got the diamonds, where did you?
I bought the diamonds from Oded. He was on Squirrel Hill in Pittsburgh, where they had the synagogue killings. Right, he was like a block away from that area. It's a highly dense Jewish population in that area.
Could you discuss your cut of that, like the proportion of, if it costs $10,000, you get 3,000, or?
Well, there's basically, everybody has their rules about stuff. For me on that piece, I think I made $5,000 off of that piece.
Where did the rest of it go?
For the diamonds and the gold. You know, to get.
Did it take you to make that?
Wow.
Yeah, people don't realize the higher the price of the jewelry, the lower the interest is on that. So you buy a $500,000 that, you know, the
Yeah, you
profit
can't-
level is very low.
Yeah, you
But
can't-
it's high, but it's not as much as you would think.
Yeah, you can't keystone price the higher end pieces, but also getting 10 matching stones, because those were all natural diamonds. Today it's a lot simpler and easier and cheaper because they have the lab grown diamonds, and I'm really happy about that. You know, it's made the whole thing a lot more equitable, more honest. So this is just a piece of sheet metal that I went on the internet, found. I was the mid-century modern. I really liked that, and she was really into cats, and her husband came in, and so I came up with this, and he said okay, you know. So. Engagement ring. That's what was mostly my business. Was the real opportunity is in bridal jewelry, you know, because the economic situation for most people since 2008 has been a little on the bleak side, unless of course you're a Wall Street person, you know, and you're flipping money in the stock market. This piece I made a long time ago. It's basically a yellow emerald. It's a piece of beryl. And I really like this basket weave design. I use it in a lot of my work.
Did you cast that one?
Yeah, it's silver with gold prongs.
Was it hard to make the
casting? You mean the carving? Yeah, the carving's it's intricate. You have to be real careful. Choose your wax.
I think that would be a very hard one to actually do, but it came out really nice.
It's a little rough, but yeah.
So the process on that, you take another material, carve it, and then you make a mold.
Piece of wax.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to do that from start?
And I don't remember. It's been so long ago. It's
Months or?
no, but it's been 20 years since I made that piece. I still have it. I refused to sell it because I liked it. No, I don't wear a lot of jewelry.
Does your wife wear it?
No, she doesn't wear. You know, I made her this really nice wedding ring, and she wears this little. I ended up having to take a 0.5 millimeter piece of gold wire and solder it together, and so she'll wear a wedding ring. You know, it's like she doesn't. She's not.
How long have you been married, man?
We just had our 25th anniversary, and we've been together for 28 years.
Great.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, and she doesn't want to wear a wedding ring, though.
No, she does. She wears the band, but she doesn't really like. Well, she had eczema, you know, so.
Oh, that's a different thing, yeah.
So engagement ring here, oval, you know, cut diamond. What's hard about these oval cuts is finding one that doesn't have a bow tie shadow in the middle. So I prided myself on, you know, and this particular dealer was very helpful. That's a blue blue treated diamond in that one. I always thought that piece was clumsy though. I never really liked it, but it was what they wanted, so I gave it to them.
What do you find clumsy, the prongs or the side?
Yeah, the way the side goes, it's bulky and it's it kind of mimics the way the computer people are making computer design jewelry now, you know, but.
How did you make the blue diamond?
Oh, I didn't. I didn't.
Where do you get a blue diamond?
From a diamond dealer. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen it. Wow.
It was
So
lab grown, right?
no, it was irradiated at the time. They didn't have lab grown yet.
It's like a natural form diamond that they then turned blue.
Yeah, what they do is they take the crummy ones
Yeah.
that are off color,
They make them more spectacular
right,
by adding color.
and put them in the accelerator and expose them. And whatever's in the diamond sometimes changes one color or the next.
Amazing.
So these pieces are interesting here, but this one on the right. So when I was a kid growing up in Lake Worth, we'd go up the street, and there were still Native American people, Miccosukees and Seminoles. And so up at the 5 and Dime store, there was a couple, Chief Otobi and his wife, and he would sit outside the 5 and 10 cent store while his wife went in. And she wore traditional headdress. I don't know if you've ever seen a Seminole traditional headdress, but they take a board that's eccentric cam shaped, like it's big in the front and small in the back, and then the ladies, and they put their hair, and they wrap their hair around it, and it makes a big visor, right? And it's pretty ingenious. And so I've always been amazed by that. So this ring on the side, that's what inspired that ring.
Right part of it within the visor part.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And so the blue part's her head, yeah. So this was for a young couple, Morris Daniel. It's sapphires, 18 karat yellow gold. So this piece, that design came to happen over a 14-year period. I must have made a dozen pieces of every imaginable whatever to get to that point. And I never could figure it out until finally one day it dawned on me that the ratio on that pear shape was what was going to make it happen. The 2-part ring. So
What's your name, Mary?
Well, a normal ratio on a pear shape is 2 to 1, right? So 2, 1, right? This is 3 to 1. You can tell it's long and skinny. It's in the case there. You can see it. I refused to sell it. Somebody wanted to buy it. I won the jewelers contest at the convention center. They have Jewelers of America, or whoever it was. They put on a big show every year for all the dealers. And my boss won it the year prior, and I said, well, I'm going to win that contest this year. So I put this in there, and it won, And it's 2 parts. So backtracking a little bit. So when I was young and had more energy and a lot of passion, I wanted to redefine bridal jewelry because we've been wearing and giving the same stupid design for 140 years. The Tiffany Solitaire is a vintage antique design, and everybody wears it and they all think it's great, and I wanted to redesign that. And so I thought to myself, well, I came up with a whole spread, a collection of all these really interesting designs, right? And how many did I sell? None. Not a single one. Because I found out that people are xenophobic. They're xenophobic as a flock of chickens. Have you ever seen a flock of chickens when you go out to a chicken house and you do something to the chicken yard, like clean it up or put lime down or something, then they'll all come up and they'll stand there and look at it. And finally, one will get brave and put a foot out, and then another foot, and then the other ones will follow, and pretty soon, they'll all kind of accept it, right? And that's how they are, and that's what I found out. So You know, so I couldn't get anywhere because people were afraid of, they didn't understand it, right? They were afraid of it. So
Younger people that.
yeah, yeah, they all want what their friends have. So if you're making jewelry and you can make jewelry or you can make money, one or the other. Sometimes you can do both, okay? Sometimes you can do both, if you know, but anyway.
Your creative efforts in this, your whole world of jewelry, your creative efforts have been more just for you.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, because when I was setting up at the Lighthouse Marina, you know, the lighthouse, it's that place. Boy, you want to see some bucks. You want to see an extravagant display of wealth. Go to the Sailfish Marina. They've got these 100-foot yachts that come in, you know, and it takes if it takes 10% of the cost of the yacht to maintain it for a year. So if you got $1 million yacht, it's like $100,000 a year to keep a captain, keep a dock space, keep it scraped, keep it painted, right? So when I was showing there, people would come by. They thought I was buying kits from China. Yeah, this is sour grapes coming out here, people. So I made up my mind after, you know, I just said, I'm just going to do it and make it and do it for myself. If nobody likes it, that's too bad. So this is a land crab, right? So when I was a kid, my dad took care of this estate down in High Paluxo, which was south of West Palm Beach and Lantana and Palm Beach, you know. And Mr. Brown started the estate. He had a big mansion. He dug all these ponds, and he was aquaculture, and he was raising shrimp in all these ponds because, you know, the tide comes in, and they would change the water out every day in these ponds. But around there was all these land crabs, and so it was my job to go out and shoot the land crabs, right? And I got to tell you, it's harder to sneak up on a land crab than it is an American wild turkey. I don't know if any of you have ever hunted turkeys or hunted rabbits or anything. These things, they're the most difficult game in the world, I guess. And so it was my job to shoot them, and I shot a lot of them. And so this is my tribute to all the land crabs that I killed when I was 11 years old, huh?
My wife would love that one. Our last name's Crab.
I'll have to make her another one. I don't think I have any. I might have melted it by.
Has such a wonderful sense of humor.
Yeah.
And so this is when I learned how to make Cuban link from my friends from Ecuador. This is just a design I made for an apology gift. That was part of that, you know, that design led to the other design. You know, the designs like lead up to each other. You know, you start with one thing and then you can stretch it, move it around, draw it this way, pull it that way, do all sorts of stuff. And you can get a lot of interesting things. Okay, so this is gun barrel jewelry. And that piece, I think, is in the case if you want to see it. It's got a sapphire in it. And so this is the process pictures. So I saved these because I was posting on Facebook at the time. This is how it is after I made the center part, and I'm going to get ready to solder the steel onto the middle, the base silver inner core. There it is after it's soldered and filed. There it is after it's polished.
Ring or a bracelet?
It's a ring. It's in the case if you want to see it. And there it is. After so you have to treat it with acid, you know, to get the Damascus, the pattern to come out. So what it is, it's you take two different qualities of iron and you put them together, heat them up real hot, and then smash them with a hammer, and they weld. And so what they would do is they would make these long rods and then spiral them around another long rod, and they would make a barrel for shotguns. And then after a long time, after they've been around 100 years or so, they start to rust and the welds fail. So they're no good anymore. You hurt yourself if you try to use it. So I thought, well, I'll make jewelry out of it, you know, because people like iron jewelry, you know. Oops. I don't know why it keeps doing that.
A few rings out of a barrel, then just cut them.
Oh yeah. So this is part of it starting out, you know, making the center core piece. I don't know why it's doing that. I'm sawing the barrel off to get a piece.
Is this your home shop or is this here?
No, this was at my store. I took these pictures at my store.
That? Or is that?
It was in Clintonville. The sign is still up. You can still see the sign up. It's a big yellow sign, and it looked like an old car lot. It looked like and people would be like, "What's he doing back?" They thought and one customer even said, "We thought you were some Julio back here getting money to send to terrorists overseas." Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot for that. I appreciate that.
Ritzy's? Is that block where Ritzy's is?
Yeah, it's just north of that. It's just a block north of the hardware store. So, you know, you cut it in spiral to get the iron back out. And there it is. So if you can pick up an old gun barrel, you can really do some nice work with it. Old nails make really great stuff. If you see, there's not in here, but there's one made out of a nail over there. There's another engagement ring, lots of engagement rings. This was really interesting. I really liked this piece. I made it. A little kid, there was this little kid, I forget her name. She was about 8 years old, and she was on the spectrum, and just as smart as a whip. And she came in, and and the dad would bring her in and let her design stuff because she was so, you know, he wanted to help her. So he would let her design things. And I had several kids like this. There was this other lady, Mrs. McDaniel, and she broke the color line in the Women's Army Nursing Corps. And she was one of my customers. I was always really proud of helping. And her, I still know her children. They're big in social justice work around town. But this was interesting because the stuff in the middle, the color, I figured out how to work with celluloid plastic, which is the original plastic, right? It's made from wood fiber, right? And I discovered that in order to work with it, you have to soften it up with acetone fumes. Like you lock it up, you know, that's how they do the instruments, like the drum sets, you know. They take the sheets of celluloid, expose them to acetone fumes, and then they get like wet spaghetti, and you can wrap them around, do anything you want. But you can also dissolve the plastic in the acetone and then lift it out and then spatula in place. And then when the acetone evaporates, you're left with the material. So I made this dragonfly and mixed up the colors and put the stuff in there. And I really liked it, you know, for that kid. So.
Did you design the butterfly?
Huh? Yeah. She wanted a dragonfly. Yeah, and she wanted to look sort of like that, you know. So this was another, I don't know who wanted. I always felt that the prongs were a little clumsy on that piece, but I had to get it done. I like this one, but it's a bad picture. These baguettes and emeralds around the outside edge. And then, of course, I love fishing. I love to fish. And in Florida, we catch big fish out in the ocean. You got to go miles out. So these are my two favorite fish, mahi and snapper. So this was interesting. I had these people come in, and this lady, her nickname was Fluff. And her husband, Glenn, came in and wanted this. And so I had to figure out how to do this, right? Which I don't even remember how I did it, but I had to figure it out. And you can see the reflection of my neighbor's building in the right-hand side there, because I took the picture outside. This was interesting too. So some guy came in and he had been at a concert and got a backstage pass and ended up walking away with a set of guitar strings from some famous rock and roll guy. I can't remember who it is. And he wanted a bracelet. So we figured out what to do, and I made him a bracelet out of the guitar strings. I imagine it rusted after a while. So I never knew, I never heard what happened to it. Okay, so here's the iron, right? There's that one with the nail. That one's over there. But so I have this friend, Rob Jackson, and he lives in Massachusetts, and he did this his whole life, and he worked at University of Georgia. He was a tenured professor, and all of his jewelry is made with old nails. And his thing was, you take a material that has no respect at all. It's just an old rusty piece of metal. You could pick it up from the street, right? But you make it legitimate by putting gold on it. You raise it up and make it worthy of respect because you put gold and diamonds on it.
This was put on the gold though. For that.
Yeah, the nail, yeah. So I did the nail, put the gold on it, set the diamonds. I still have it. The one on the left, I still have. That one created a job where I made one like it out of platinum. And it was just an old rusty piece of metal that I got at the welding supply on Springfield out of the parking lot. And they paid me $1,500. Okay, that. I mean, I liked it because I liked the metal. I liked the texture. I liked the feel of it. And the fact that it was a found object. They wanted it for status. I was in it for beauty, right? And that's the thing you with jewelry, that's the one thing, that's the battle you're up against is you're fighting status. In a minute. You're fighting status, right? Some people are into it for the money, for the most part, they take this dumbest things and they put an ad in the magazine and pay for a full page ad in the New Yorker or in the New York Times. And then all of a sudden everybody has to have it. What's that all about? I don't know, okay.
What's the hardest metal to work with? Is that platinum or gold or
Copper.
Copper?
Yeah.
Is that really hard?
Yeah.
Soft and stuff?
No, because you're trying to do stuff to it, and it combines with oxygen. It oxidizes. It throws off electrons at every turn. It does all this stuff, and you're always trying to be one step ahead of controlling the heat when you're working with it. Forging, it's fine. If you can cold forge a piece of copper, that's great. But the minute you try to start adding stuff to it, the easiest metal I ever worked with was platinum. I love platinum.
When you're adding the gold to the iron, are you, like I know with silver, you can bring like a fine silver to the top and just push the gold in, but with iron, do you have to solder it?
Actually, for that piece, the center core, I just made it real wide and straight. And then I took the little torch, the Smith torch, and melted the edges. And when I did that, it fused itself to the iron.
Like it kind of...
It just fused itself to the iron, yeah.
I was going to do that. Work with it.
Yeah, I had watched and talked to my friend Rob Jackson a lot. He's real famous in magazines. If you look him up on your phone, you'll see him. Rob Jackson from Athens, Georgia, UGA was, And then that one in the middle, the one in the middle is just the gun barrel stuff, Hammered, I made a lot of these. These were really popular. The hammered metal wedding bands, 6 millimeters wide dome with a hammer texture. Everybody loved them. Sell 1 million of them. Mine used to look like that, but it wore out. So with the rifles, right, this is a pistol that I made, and you can see how, how I start with cutting out and making models and, drawings and stuff.
I'm sorry for a minute. That one you had to pound it like your ring. You can do that here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Here you can do that. Yeah. You just need a hammer and a ring mandrel.
Are your students here going to get the benefit?
Oh yeah.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah, give me time. Get them to where they can use the tools first, and then
Uh-huh.
that's the other thing I've done is I had to teach myself how to teach, and how to read somebody, because people sometimes they can't always express themselves, you know, and you know they've got the desire there, and you gotta look through all that stuff and read between the lines, and you gotta reach that person. You gotta reach in there and pull out what's inside of them, and get them to feel, you know, to hand-eye coordination, you know. And we're getting close on time here, so I'm going to have to hurry. You know, so I mean, this piece was made with glass. They're local, Kay Marshall and Paul Marshall.
Do you know these pieces go to people?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's the best part of the whole job, is connecting with that person. I'm actually, my wife says that I'm empathic. And sometimes I see things, sometimes I have dreams, sometimes I hear things, sometimes I feel things, you know. So these are Koroit opals, huh?
That makes you a better teacher.
But you know, you get in and pull something out of somebody and get them past their fear, you know, to help them. That was designed by that kid that did the other one with the dragonfly too. She came in with a little drawing, crayon drawing, and so I put it together. I never did sell that ring. Nobody would ever pay for it. These organic ones were real popular too. There's the nail. So these were done as demos for classes that I did down at Fort Lauderdale. And that one, that was the opal I waited for my entire life. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I waited.
Yeah, tell us more about that.
Well, when I first started out, I went to a gem show and I saw the opals, and I just was like, I was speechless, you know. And of course, you got to have money to buy an opal, you know. And finally, somebody donated a bunch of stuff to the art center in West Palm Beach, and they didn't want it, so I made them an offer, and they sold me the jar. And when I went through the jar, I found that one, and that's actually only half of it, you know. I might still have the other half. I can't remember, but that's the one I cried when I saw that one. Tears came out of my eyes when I saw it. Yeah, it was pretty emotional. That piece there, that was one of my great triumphs. It's made out of 18 karat palladium white gold. It's got a big morganite, which is a pink beryl. It's the same as emerald, but it's pink. That piece is constructed out of all wire construction and soldered. There's like 60 solder joints in that piece. So that's the front of it. And then I might have the back of it somewhere in here. I thought I had the back side of it. That might be the last piece. I think that was the last piece I made before I closed my store.
You did sell that piece?
Yeah. When I was there, everything was already paid for before I did it. Except sometimes I wouldn't have anything to do, you know. There's one in here that I'm looking for that is my favorite for photography. Oh. Come on, go back. It's not going back. There. That one in the middle, You know what inspired that was seeing stingrays swim in the water. Have you ever seen them swim? And the edges, how they riffle. And there's another version of the Seminole hairdo. I want to get to that one piece, that one picture. Am I going backwards? Oh, yeah. Okay. Thank you. I don't know which way I'm heading. Those were fun. That's 3 pieces. You got to make the middle all one piece, then cut one side off, solder the gold on, then cut the other side off and solder the gold on to get that. I did a lot of vintage stuff. Oh, that piece, the lady came in and said, I want you to make me a ring. And you do it however you want. Just anything you want. And I said, really? Okay. So I made that ring. She came in, picked it up, acted like she loved it, brought it back 2 weeks later and said, I hate it. And it was one of the nicest pieces I thought I ever created.
Take it back and modify it?
Yeah, I melted it. I pulled the stones out and melted it. Yeah, I had to. Nothing, I mean, I got paid for it, but I still have the picture. This was probably about the nicest stone setting job I ever did. In the side stones, they were bead setting. That was when my eyes worked. Oh, well, something happened to that one picture. It was a picture of a lady holding one of the pieces like this, you know, against her face. So. Anyway, so we got a couple of minutes left. Any more questions?
When was the original rifle built and where?
It was built in Pennsylvania in the 1700s. I think it was after the Revolution.
You want to show that to us?
This one? Well, you can come up and see it if you want. 1 minute. Okay. Yeah, so I do that now for people, you know, still. But you can come up and see it. So, all right, well, that's great. Thank you all. I love